It'll tell us when. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Ayofemi Kirby. I am the Chief Strategist and founder of 1136 Strategies. And I am here with our fantastic account director, Farima Kohn-Kito, who is joining me for this presentation today. We are a team of creative problem solvers. We work across arts and culture and social impact with museums, cultural initiatives, cultural nonprofits, galleries, anyone in the creative space to provide public engagement, communication strategies that reach and resonate with their audiences. And so this is our first time actually doing a presentation and report like this, but we also provide our clients and the greater community insights and strategies and recommendations that can advance your work no matter where you are, even if you're not working directly with us. So we really appreciate you joining us today and taking the time to engage with the material, engage with our presentation and our thoughts. So we will run through the TrendWatch report. This is an opportunity for us to just offer you all insights on what we see happening across the creative and cultural landscapes and consumer landscapes as well. So we really think across disciplines in finding, what's resonating with citizens and consumers, because we don't separate them as two different sort of stakeholder groups. When they pay for a product or engage with you and your organization, if you're a nonprofit, they're paying with their attention. They may be donors. So we really want to help people understand the behaviors of consumers and consumers as citizens. So this is our top 5 trends of 2025 that we offer to you all to consider integrating into your work in small and large ways. So I'll pause for a minute. Farima, is there anything that you'd like to add about this work and the report?
No, except that we're really excited to share that with our community, and we think that these trends are going to help tremendously in transforming the work that we're doing according to what we're currently living and the financial hardships that we're all experiencing these days, and in predictability of the future as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we'll jump in and then we'll leave some time for questions. This should be a pretty quick overview, and then we'll leave time for you to ask anything of us and for any other insights that may come to mind while we're speaking. So let me scroll down here. So really, why do these trends matter, right? Like Farima just mentioned, consumer expectations, economic uncertainties, all these things are changing. Technological innovations are changing. And so whether you're a museum or a cultural nonprofit or business or artist trying to figure out how to best align the way in which you speak and engage with your publics, we believe that these trends are essential to that work for 2025. So our goal, like we mentioned, is really to just offer them to you and be creative and partner with you in thinking about how you can integrate them in small and large ways in your work. We also think and would recommend that you think about the trends as a cohesive strategy, like when you go through them, if you haven't already seen the report. But if you go through each trend, you might think, oh, this can connect to this one, or this trend may feed into this one in another way that strengthens your communications ecosystem and your ecosystem as an organization. So that's why we believe that they matter, and that's why we believe that they fit together really well in this report. Okay. So the 5 trends that we identified this year are AI and automation, narrowcasting, digital wallets, experiential experiences, and small treats culture. So we'll go into more of what they mean now, but as an overview, those are the 5 areas that we've identified for 2025 as really critical and essential to your communications and your public engagement program. So first, we talk about AI, and we've named it empathetic AI because we believe that technology can be used to increase compassion, increase connection between humans, and not replace it. And so, it refers to the machines and capable systems that are able to do things that humans might do, right? So ChatGPT, tools like Jasper, things that more and more individuals and organizations are using to speed up their work and really be thought partners in creativity, right? So a lot of people have said that they're afraid or feel threatened by AI being in the workplace. It's going to replace jobs, which is likely to happen. So to get ahead of that trend as communications professionals, cultural nonprofit professionals, cultural professionals, artists, we think that there's an opportunity to really look at AI as a partner in your work rather than a threat. And so in the report, we've identified some of the ways that or reasons that it matters, right? So it's level the playing field for anyone. So anyone with a computer or even a phone can, log into ChatGPT, have a conversation with it, ask it questions. All of the tools that are now integrating the ChatGPT technology offers an opportunity to create brand campaigns, create content that's really smart, right? And can serve as a starting point for your work. Again, we talked about enhanced creativity and empathy rather than replacing human interaction. In some ways, it can enhance it. And we provided two examples of tools that organizations and an agency actually use to do this in supporting nurses, healthcare, mental health for the public. And then, like we said, we keep saying strategic and empathetic integration. It's really key that you don't see AI as a threat to your work, but really think about it as a partner, right? And be transparent with it, right? Like if it's speeding up the opportunity for you to get more done, provide more opportunities for content generation, even just thought partnership as a starting point, not replacing your strategic foresight or insight or efforts, then we strongly encourage you to consider using it. See. Farima, is there anything you'd add about AI?
No, I think you hit the spot with it. It's super important to consider that as a partner in thinking, in creation, and also in curation of content that you'd like to share with your community. And we often also like to recommend using AI as a sparring companion, essentially as a way to get a sense of what's the current conversation about a given topic that we'd like to cover. So it's a great tool to use and to implement.
Absolutely. And here we've just provided a couple of examples. One that we're using as of late is the Otter AI, which is like a note taker for your meetings. It automatically joins your meetings. It'll automatically send notes. It automatically provides a transcript and action items after the meeting if you sign up for the free plan or even the paid plan. So again, it's not about replacing humans in the workplace, but really enhancing our ability to get more done, take some of the the more mundane tasks off our plate so that we can get into the more creative works. So here we provided a list of examples that you can consider. And so we talked about the opportunities or a couple of strategies that you can include AI in. And so we've outlined them here. I've already mentioned them, so I won't repeat them here. And so for Rima, we'll talk about narrowcasting, which is our second trend for 2025.
Yes, thank you, Femi. And it's actually one of my favorites because it touches on the need to kind of hone on a content that's very much proper to your niche and your community. So we'll get more into it. But essentially, what is narrowcasting? Well, narrowcasting is a practice of targeting specific audiences and niches, like I mentioned, rather than trying to reach everyone all at once and combining everything into what we would say like a very not necessarily like broad voice essentially. Now, unlike broadcasting, which is the practice of sharing content in mass and not necessarily having a point of view coming across or that's being defined through the audience, narrowcasting focuses on delivering highly relevant content and experiences to smaller communities that we identify with, and so folks that are sharing similar values, interests, or identities. And it's a direct response to the wake of hyper-personalization and algorithmic precision that we're seeing across social media and across social platforms. So this is a practice that should help in maintaining consistent attention and engagement with the communities that we're actually interested in, bringing towards us. And the reason why this trend matters is because now, since we're navigating a content landscape where we're constantly flooded with one size fits all messaging, and so, blend messaging that is essentially trying to cover all bases all at once, we are seeing that audiences are getting fatigued. And so narrowcasting can provide the opportunity to cut through the noise with specificity. And so, holding on to specific topics that we are interested, that are very much linked to our mission and values, and expanding on them in ways that are touching on the things that our community values and that our community is interested in delving into some more. And the ways that this can happen is by essentially applying the concept across many many forms of involvement with our communities. And so, for instance, it's not a new practice, but I mean, it's not a new concept, but it's a concept that can help with figuring out essentially how to get organizations and creative businesses to emphasize and curate exclusive experiences with their community, or to even personalize these interactions and um, experiences that they're trying to offer. And it can be done using email strategy and automation. And in this case, for instance, using MailChimp and WhatsApp is a great way to explore the possibilities around segmentation, possibilities around the personalized follow-ups. If there is somebody, for instance, that has a question for you, or like there are recurring questions within the community that I'd like to touch on, these tools are very much helpful. So again, thinking of how to harness the power of WhatsApp and MailChimp. And we could also get that done by leveraging audience engagement and interactive tools through apps like Instagram and TikTok. And that will help with fostering participation and all of the benefits that folks can get from deepening the connections with their audience. And the third one that we have here is to also consider using or integrating customer services and direct connections by utilizing chatbots that are often available for any platforms that you're using, essentially to facilitate your website. So this is something that can be integrated on your website. You could also have private messaging that you can consider across your platforms, and also hosting Q&A sessions, or at least having webinars like this, for instance, and hosting that content on your YouTube, or again, harnessing the power of WhatsApp or Messenger to provide this personal touch and avenue to connect directly with your audience member. And finally, considering subscription services like membership tiers, for instance, or newsletters, or any exclusive content that you can share with your brand loyalists, or like the people who are really close to you, who are really who continuously engage with your content, can serve as a great way to even turn them into your ambassadors, so that they can share it with even people who are not necessarily in the community. So it's a great way to also with amplify your message by ways of involving your closer community members. And so now I'll pass it back to Femi, who's going to touch on digital wallets and how this trend can also increase the impact, or embellish, brighten what you're offering already to your community.
Yep, definitely. Thank you, Farima. So digital wallets, most of us are not using cash. I think I could safely say that the majority of people, no matter where you are in the world, particularly outside of the United States, actually don't use cash at all. We're using what we call digital wallets, which of course includes Apple Pay. It includes apps like Revolut, which is becoming really popular, these sort of global borderless, physicalless banks and financial institutions that increase the likelihood that people can spend more or pay easier and quicker for consumer goods, right? And so we don't think that these should be relegated to any sort of consumer product, but can also benefit our cultural organizations, nonprofits, and artists and creatives as well. So that's why we've included it. There's so much happening in the digital wallet space, and we believe that and encourage our organizations to really think about the opportunities to encourage their stakeholders, communities, visitors, ambassadors, like Farima was saying, to pay for items, register with for tickets or events, and even if they're in physical spaces, to post QR codes and make it interactive and encourage people to scan to offer a donation or a gift to the organizations that they love. So generally, that's the concept. Everyone is familiar enough with I think the idea of Apple Pay, or using Cash App, putting your Cash App in your profiles, just little small ways to encourage people to engage with you, financially, and really have an investment, a financial investment in the organization. So really quickly, there's convenience and speed. It's quick. People aren't really thinking about it, and that's probably why there's been such a transition. It's like you scan either your watch or your phone, and pay. You don't even think about it, right? So how can we as organizations, a nonprofit community, think about membership signups? How do we make it easier using these tools for people to just pull out their phone or use whatever, Vision Pro and scan it with their eyes, as we move forward and engage with us that way? Transparency and security. So there's no need to do written accounting. It's kind of antiquated, but it also just really increases the ability for tracking, and seeing how and who and what people give. And I think that this is probably going to become even more of a trend with more people adapting with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, which is becoming more popular. It's like a digital record that can be traced. Younger audiences, like I said, I'm a millennial. I think Farima's Gen Z. You're Gen Z, I believe.
Jason,
No
yeah.
one's, okay, no one's really using cash anymore, right? If we're using cash, it's for a specific reason, but we'll quickly pay with Apple Pay or scan our faces. And so we really need to think about the next generation as well as the current, the older generations, adapting this technology. And again, it just removes an obstacle. When you're trying to get people to engage and come through your funnels, it really is about making their experience as frictionless as possible. So thinking from the end, is this going to stop them from engaging? Will this stop them from giving a donation? How do we integrate this so that it makes it as easy as possible for them to make a transaction, whether that's, signing up for something or giving some money, or if they're in an exhibition or an event and they've had such a great experience, maybe at the end, there's an opportunity for them to just kind of scan and donate, right? $5, no donation, as we know, is too small or too large. And so how do you integrate that into your visitor experience or customer experience or stakeholder experience as easy as possible? And so we have provided a couple of creative examples. There's a pop-up store that allows you to integrate cashless apps with your retail experience. You can click and learn more about that in the report. There is an AR payment technology. And I'll say this, a lot of people think these tools are really expensive, but they're not, because they're so easy to create using technology, using AI and the tools that are available to us. And so you can just create something with an AR tool, and you can kind of just Google and see what's available for a low cost. So thinking about this one with Curve. And then there's a really cool one where a manicure spot partnered with Cash App, to where you can use your nails. They've integrated the technology in your nails so that you can pay with Cash App and your nails, right? So we know that that might not be something that, a cultural organization or a nonprofit may integrate into their work, but it just gets the creative juices flowing as to what's possible in integrating technology and thinking about, okay, well, maybe an artist can build something into one of their pieces, right? And you can scan it and it talks about something, related to the organization. So it's really about being creative and being as creative as possible and just testing and experimenting and seeing what people respond to. And I've kind of jumped here into applying it into your work. So again, QR codes, micro donations, We don't have to have like a $5,000, $10,000, $250 donation. Anybody can donate if they feel an affinity and an emotional connection to the organization. Being able to just swipe your card, swipe your watch makes it easier for them to do that. Community partnerships, like we said, the um, Cash App and manicure salon partnership. Like, how do we work across maybe organizations that have resources and can do something like that, that then becomes appealing to the tech tool? Because their incentive is just getting as many people using the tool as possible. Your incentive is making sure that it's easy for your customers, stakeholders, visitors to transact with you. Like Farima mentioned, subscription and membership models, thinking about digital memberships that they can pay with Cash App. That's like $5 or something really quick that they can engage with your organization and your content. And then like pay as you go or flexible pricing, even though this is not related to like like Apple Pay or Cash App, really allowing a flexibility in the model of financial engagement that they have with your organization, right? So it's like pay what you wish, pay with your card, pay with your Apple Pay, not card. Cards go into the same category as cash. But thinking about the digital payment systems that just allow for easy transactions. Again, so it's really about what's going to lower the barrier to engagement, and then making sure that you have a presence on as many of these tools as possible because they're also popular. And then I'm going to take this one, and then Farima's going to round us out. But experiential experiences. So recently, there's been so many more people are talking about the downturn in the economy, right? And how that's affecting or will affect, and we see it as cyclical, people's engagement with cultural organizations, museums, luxury items, right? So we really consider culture as being a part of the luxury community, even though there's arguments against that, right? Culture and arts being a right in many ways, but many people think that, it's not essential, right, to go to a museum or to go see an exhibit or to participate in some sort of community programming. It's just a reality of the market and how people in the community and how people sometimes think, depending on where you are and, a number of other factors. So with this one, we really encourage that our organizations think about curating small, intimate experiences that build a greater emotional connection with your communities. And so we talked about how earlier a lot of these ideas or trends really tie together. So if you're thinking about, okay, segmenting and narrowcasting, like Farima was talking about, how if we have a high level of 5 or 10 people who always open our emails or who always come to our events, how do we identify them, keep track of them, and then maybe offer them an incentive for their increased engagement or high touch engagement with our organization, because those are our cultural ambassadors. Those are our community ambassadors, for lack of a better term. And so as organizations, it doesn't always have to be like a massive event. And I think often these experiences are offered to the highest donors, right? Like if you give a ton of money, then you get an exclusive event. But what about the people who are really like committed as volunteers, or even if they're always sharing your events on their social media? How do we keep track of those people and bring them into our spaces, our physical spaces, which is such a luxury, so that they really can deepen their emotional connection with us as organizations and institutions? So yes, I've sort of covered all of these. There's a growing demand for personalization. More people want to feel special, which, it's not a hard thing to understand or to see why. But as things become less personal with technology, people will be looking for more personal opportunities to connect with each other and with the organizations and content that they love. Experience first mindsets. Younger folks want to spend money, time on meaningful experiences rather than goods and tangible goods. Cultural organizations and nonprofits offer that in a way that's really special and deep. So we want to keep that in mind. Again, we mentioned physical spaces, how important that is and how rare it is, particularly in markets like New York, communities like New York, LA, Atlanta. Having like physical spaces where people can gather is really important. So use it and think about that creatively and for small groups. And then, of course, you mentioned long-term relationship building, like really thinking about how the people who have already expressed interest in your content in a really special and meaningful way, to go deeper with them into relationships, stakeholder relationships. And there are statistics that show that 40% more is offered and given for consumer goods, organizations that actually think about these sort of experiences as a stakeholder of value offer as a part of their communication strategy. So I've mentioned most of these, and for time's sake, I will turn it to Freema for our last one.
Thank you. Yeah, now moving on to our next trend, the small treats culture. So what we mean by the small treats culture, or like the way we like to call them, which is to let them eat cake, is that it's a trend that speaks to the rise of summer of consumers' demand for affordable luxury items, and specific luxury items that are capable of bringing them moments of joy and inspiration. And so anything from limited edition museum merch to special edition gourmet treats is kind of located within this trend. And these relatively low cost treats can give consumers a sense of reward and emotional support without requiring the hefty price tag that typically comes with a high end goods. So think of the work-in versus the Birkin, because it's essentially the same sentiment, and it's a great illustration of that, the tension that is currently happening with people, for instance, wanting the kick, the feel that comes with acquiring something of tremendous value that they believe will provide with joys versus not necessarily being able to afford it. And that definitely reflects the current economic state of things, and the fact that it's also visible from a household's budget to corporate investments. And so being able to think of these tricky times in a sense that is speaking to consumers habits, while integrating the small treats trend can help with providing a coping mechanism that will also keep cultural institutions, creative businesses relevant. So I've touched on it a little bit, but essentially the reason why this trend matters is because Femi also mentioned, luxury is not necessarily seen as essentials, as an essential thing at times, as in, when financial insecurity is on the rise and people are thinking, okay, is cultural art something that I have to spend time and money on versus, thinking about the essentials that comes with like maintaining a household or offering rent, affording rent and things like that. The conclusion is often excluding cultural institutions, museums, and galleries. So thinking of framing them in such a way that these institutions and the offering that these institutions provide as small treats as the way to stay relevant in the climate in that way, and in a climate of like the one we're navigating now, and thinking of offering cultural luxury experiences, for instance, while at the same time making them accessible by thinking of programs, for instance, that are like pay what you can programs, or even collaborations between artists, or artists and museums, or like sharing or inviting visitors to spend money at the gift shop and obtaining a coffee mug that that will provide with the joy, but at the same time not break their bank, is a great way to allow for people to bring their experiences home with them, experiences that they were able to take in, or like live in the cultural institution, the museums, and the galleries with them at home. And so it is also important to think about small treats as a way to engage the audience and to maintain engagement as well. And like I said, thinking about treats, like useful treats, for instance, or things that are allowing for emotional uplift and escapism, like sharing like line items that are providing with joy, that are providing with a sense of specialness, can help with keeping audiences, coming and engaging, even people who are outside of the scope of people that we're usually getting in touch with. And also thinking about ways to bridge the gap between exclusive and accessible is also something that's really important, and it's a direct response to the growing tension of the financial climate versus the desire to experience luxury and to also cope with the hardship that's at stake. And then another thing that is also helpful in thinking is to think of cultural nonprofits and creative businesses as spaces where people can come for low cost and high value experiences or products, and that also is very much reflected in what Femi was talking about when she touched on the fact that we're living in an experiential experience era where people are looking to experience more than to spend, to be in spaces with humans, as a result of getting fatigued by the heaviness that comes with technology at times. And so some of the examples that some of the ways streets can be implemented, or like this trend can be implemented by our cultural institutions and businesses is by, for instance, like I mentioned, including limited editions art inspired merch in your gift shop, so that visitors can get the opportunity to bring home a piece of the experience without breaking the bank, so without necessarily stressing over how much things are going to cost and whether or not they can afford it. And another way to go about it is to also go consider pay what you wish events, because that gives an option for people to come attend, and that also encourages donation. And so folks, for instance, may not be ready to spend a huge amount of money, to pay 2 or 3 weeks of a workshop course, for instance, but they might be open to joining again and again if you offer free classes, or like you offer pay what you wish classes, and that will also entice people who are not necessarily belonging in your community at that time to come and check out, since it's not attached to a cost. And another way of doing that is also to offer community bundles containing essentials like gourmet snacks, for instance, that you can include in meal distribution programs. And we believe that this can help with boosting mood, ensuring care for your community. And finally, for offering a budget-friendly decor, so we are still. It is true that we're like in an era where financial hardship is really something that's touching everyone, and like we mentioned, from a household to a corporate standpoint. But what is helpful is to think about aesthetics and to think about things that are useful to audiences, and they may still want to have, for instance, high-end furnitures and high-end apparels, but they may not be able to afford it. So being able to meet them where they are, and sharing or offering affordable lines of home goods or apparels can help with still keeping them engaged and sharing and highlighting your values as an organization, but at the same time responding to their need and desire for something that's aesthetically pleasing and that can provide with joy and a sense of uplifting. And so how do we apply all of this? We've touched on it, but essentially, uh, the primary thing to consider here is to really think about the mindset of the consumers in times like this, and to think about how we could harness the small street culture as a way to stay relevant and to essentially position the proposition of museum memberships, for instance, or shops, or stores, even store offerings. And by embracing the small street culture, trend cultural institutions, nonprofits, and creative businesses can deliver moments of delight. We can, make sure that folks are also interested, kept in the loop, and engaged, and we can continue to tailor propositions based on that. And so, offering small, meaningful take-home items that are useful can also be a way to implement this trend. So offering postcards, for instance, or coffee mugs, like we mentioned, is something that can help with broadening the audience one, but also honing onto the connection that's already existing with people who are familiar with the cultural institution or the organization at hand. And also highlighting shared values by focusing on storytelling and like specific stories that uplift and reassure supporters that even small purchases or donation can be helpful is also a good way to go about it. So essentially inviting people to donate, but at the same time letting them know that not no small amount is small or non-impactful essentially is a way to do that and balancing exclusivity and accessibility as well in the way that we offer limiting edition item can also be helpful. So thinking about ways to, for instance, produce a line of apparel and make t-shirts that are really personable, that are really trendy, but at the same time that are speaking to the values of the organization that's producing them, and collaborating with an artist, for instance, that the organization has worked with before, can help with kind of balancing with, again, exclusivity, the sense of exclusivity with a limited amount of said t-shirt, while at the same time making it accessible and by making it affordable essentially. And then the last one that we recommend trying for this trend is to monitor the shift in the luxury market trends, because we've noticed that this is where we first get a sense of those stressors. And again, as Femi mentioned, this is something that's up for debate, but at least from our end, this is one thing that we've noticed in terms of how things shift, and especially in terms of how micro luxury ideas are being implemented or even taking shape in real time. And so thinking about how people react to the idea of aspirational aesthetics in times of financial hardship, and seeing how they are kept relevant, how they are how the idea evolved essentially is a great way to continue on producing ideas or producing propositions or sharing propositions with your audience and seeing how they react based on that. Yeah. So that's pretty much what we have on the trends on the small treats culture. But I'm wondering, Femi, is there anything that you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, I think one of our favorite examples of small treats culture, one of our clients and favorite organizations, the Laundromat Project, recently over the holidays sent a culturally sensitive, relevant coloring book to via email to all of their closest stakeholders, and friends of the organization. And they had a message that was just a text email, but it expressed appreciation and showed how the coloring book is an extension of their brand values, their organization's values, and was just like a little treat, right? You open it up and it was, all these cute little kids, and, you could print it out and give it to a kid, over the holidays that could, use it as a pastime, right? So it's just those little things that matter. And again, as we're seeing these trends take place, the shift to more technology, AI, we don't know what's real and what's not. We really think that this highlights the importance of being more human, right? Not less human than these tools and the threat, the so-called threat of technology and economic uncertainty and all the things that we're seeing in the world. It really makes people feel special and appreciated and valued as a part of your community. So yeah, that's all I would add. This sort of ties it all together, which I think I just did this slide about, why it's important and why we believe as a team and as a company that our clients and our community can pay attention to these and really think small ways of integrating, think about small ways of integrating them into your work. So that's all for now. I would love to open the floor for any questions. I can stop sharing my screen, and then if you do have questions, you can place them into the Q&A box. There should be a little circle that says Q and an A, and you can plug it into that box, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have, and you can always follow up with us later. But are there any questions? Farima, is there anything you'd like to add as we close things out?
Yeah, sure. Like I think that the one trend that I'm seeing, even in the other trends that we're talking about, the one trend that I'm seeing reoccurring is really AI. And so even when we're thinking about narrowcasting, for instance, this is a trend that we can sense its presence within the narrowcasting world. And when we're thinking about chatbots, for instance, we're thinking about segmentation. We're even thinking about Mailchimp and using Mailchimp as a way to automate series and making sure that we remain engaged and craft a messaging that's like really touching the segments that we're trying to get to. AI occupies, a central position in all of this. And so it's interesting that all of these trends, like you mentioned, are connecting, with each other. But I'm curious to see how the world evolves even, in the next year, because I feel like it moves so fast. And there is a lot of possibility in terms of transformation there. So, yeah.
Yep, definitely. I think we just don't want people to be afraid of the changes, but to
Hmm.
embrace them and see how they complement your work. And again, we're people. We may be using these tools, but ultimately we're people. And so we
Hmm.
have to be thought of as community members, as individuals, and our organizations being an essential part of the community and helping people remind themselves and ourselves that we are indeed always going to be human. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
well, we're right at 45 minutes or so. We think that's a good stopping point. Again, thank you all for joining us so much for the time. You can always follow up with us on the exchange. You can post your questions there. You can email us. But we're happy to speak more about these trends and answer any questions and provide additional resources. And more of these webinars and conversations to come over the next few months. So thank you again for joining, and we will see you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.